Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another webinar session from uLawPractice. Today's topic is going to be on business reporting. What we want to cover today in today's topic is really walk you through, in a deep dive fashion, all the various different reports that you can now generate out of uLaw. There are some really obvious reporting that our clients do on a day-to-day basis. But then there are some of those reports that many of our clients are not necessarily aware of. Some of the reports that don't necessarily showcase themselves as the value they provide to begin with. So this webinar would be kind of the first of its series where we're going to be focusing almost on a series basis to talk exclusively on the reporting capabilities that uLawPractice brings. We did talk briefly on the analytics capabilities, but as a legal professional, I'm sure you appreciate the amount of reporting that goes behind running your business as a legal professional, the reports that are required for clients, as a paper. There are reports that you probably want to look at yourself from your business perspective, or even understanding certain matters, or even understanding certain work in progress. And then there are the audit reports. There are reports that are required by our Law Society audit. Then there are reports that are financial in nature, that may be for the audit, maybe for your own consumption. So we're going to be really talking about the whole spectrum of the reporting capabilities today with the uLaw. As we always start our uLaw webinar with an agenda, I've kind of broken it down into different components of the uLaw menu item. And we want you to appreciate that we've kind of had reports contextually based on the different menu items themselves. So for example, starting with the contacts, you do have contact level reports. You have matter level reports, and we're going to be walking through each of these and briefly talking about what these reports entail. Then there are obviously the financial accounting related reports that a lot of our clients are well aware of, but we'll walk them through one at a time today. And I don't know if you knew that there are reports at the calendar level too. So if you wanted to take a quick snapshot or print your monthly agenda or your weekly agenda, or you wanted to generate a work in progress for a certain period of time, then you are able to do that using the reports that are under your calendar. Many times our clients have come back to us saying, well, the Law Society would like, or a client would like, all of the matters that I've dealt with over a period of this year, all matters that are active, closed, archived, whatever the status of the matter may be. I want to be able to generate just a quick report that gives me a list of all those that I've been working, maybe over a date range, maybe all matters in my entire database. So we'd like to showcase how you can generate such reports. And when you look at the financial report, one of the most common ones that you touch upon on almost a regular basis as you work off your matter are your ledgers. Now there's an easy way to find and quickly understand your ledgers and print them if you have to using the question mark. And there's a lot of emphasis that we've started providing to this question mark. It's an easy and a very understandable, navigatable way for you to get matter level analytics, or to get contact level analytics. So this question mark, as you continue to use uLaw, is going to be your friend. It's going to be giving you those insights and the reporting capabilities that you need in a very contextual manner. So let me start with the different types of reports, and just to make it a little bit more fun, we'll kind of jump back and forth between the presentation and the actual uLaw demo, as much as it's going to be a bit of a hop for me, but I'm happy to do that. So we want to focus on maybe the top 3 reports that you can generate for contact. So you look at a source of contact, that's one of our newer reports. There's the client fee book, and then there's the contact list. So the source of contact is just a simple and easy way for you to understand where are you getting your clients from? What is that lead source? Where should I be spending my marketing dollars more? So every time you intake that client, you now have the ability to capture that lead source or source of contact, and then you can always generate that report to understand where are your clients coming from. There's the client fee book. At any time, you can generate the fee book for that specific client. If you wanted to have a better perspective of the fee book for that client. And then the contact list is just a simple way you can generate a list of all the contacts, either by alphabetical group or by specific name. So let's hop into uLaw, and I'll show you those 3 different reports. So as I'm at the contacts level, I could be at a specific contact, and I could be generating these reports. And when I talk about generation, as you probably know, these reports reside within our navigation, within our document generation. Most of the reports that are straightforward in nature are classified under the category of reports. So if you look at our source of contact and a client fee book, they are categorized under the reports. And the other one that we spoke about are really the list of contacts, which it's really not a report, but it's kind of a report/document that you want to keep. For the purpose of this webinar, we've kind of classified it under a report. And I do apologize, I didn't mention early on, but this webinar is not accredited for CPD. We did have our CPD session last week, and this is more of a fun fact, a deeper dive into the uLaw product, focusing on the reporting capabilities that uLaw presents. So let's look at the source of contact. You can kind of have a date range. You can look at, all right, where are all my clients coming from for this week? Or I can have a look at, all right, how are my marketing dollars working on those referrals that I've been working with? As always, you hit the download button, and you're presented with a PDF document that essentially outlines, again, we do kind of a analytics to give you a quick spread of where these are coming from. Now, the not categorized are the ones that you didn't tell us. The source of contact is really not a mandatory field, and where you would see that is under Sam Jones. When you do the client intake, when you're entering his name or her name or your client's name, you have this new field called source of contact, okay? And then that's what you provide before you create that client. It's always a great habit and a practice now to be able to ask the client for the source of contact and then be able to generate such reports. So going back to that report, so if you do not necessarily mention the source of contact, then that would be the not categorized. But in general, your referrals seem to be working really well this month. You've got 5 referrals, clients, maybe a couple of word of mouth, walk-ins, some other programs. That's really the source of contact report, okay? You can find it under document generation, under reports, source of contact. Now let's look at a client fee book for Sam Jones. And this is a client that I've been, demonstrating a few for some of our clients. It has a little bit of juice in it, has a little bit of matter dockets in it. I can do a quick uLaw insight, but most necessarily I like to do a download so that I can actually download a printable report. So let's look at the client fee book. Now, if you provided the tax number, it puts it in there. You could potentially even send this report to Sam because, if he owes you money, so on and so forth, or if he's asking for this information, you can send it to him. So you can notice here I have one active client, or matter, for Sam. And what I've invoiced so far is $169.50, and that's the total that he's paid me so far. And if there's any invoice balance, it's going to show me there. And if there's any balance owed, it's going to show me that. So that's the real quick and easy way that you can look at a client fee book and understand the status of that client. If you wanted to be able to generate the list of contacts, it's just a quick list of all your contacts or a specific group. You just hit list of contacts. And you can either choose a specific client, Sam Jones, or you can choose a specific group. So maybe you want to look at all the respondents and print all the potential respondents that you worked with in your database. So here is a list of all the respondents with their title, address, phone number, and email, right? So you can also look at it under action, under contacts. And as I said, you can either print out the information, just basically the name, address, phone number, contact information about a contact, or either at an individual level, or you can do it for all your clients, you can do it for your co-workers, for all the different groups and the personalities and contacts that you have under those. So I wanted to generate a quick list of all the tenants that I worked with, or clients who have classified as tenants. Then you have that list individually. So Ben Kingsley, Chad Spell, Montgomery, And also every report that in uLaw predominantly has a date stamp on it. So you always know when that report was generated. Okay? So going back, you have your source of contact, client feedback contact list. Let's move on to the next. You have matter reports. Now again, you're going to see this gradually improve as we move along each and every menu item. We're going to look at timeline reports, one of the newer features of the uLaw reporting engine. Legal aid report. So we do have, I think Ontario has a very specific way in which you present legal aid, and we do have at a matter level a way of representing it very specific to that legal aid standard. You can generate timesheets, bill of costs, which is also a financial report, but more at a matter level. Statement of activity. So this is one of the most common reports that you see that clients do ask for, and I'm assuming that their end clients would ask them as well about what's really happening, and can you give me a quick statement of activity at a matter level. And we have specifically at the matter level reporting capabilities with analytics, and obviously that translates into accounting level activities or analytics from the matter. So jumping back into the uLaw product and going into my matter screen, let me pick and choose Sam Jones, which is the client that I'm using today. For the purposes of this demonstration and just to make it a little bit more interesting, let me go back and activate or make this other matter for Sam active. So you have a mix of both. So when we talk about the reports, again, under document generation, you have your statement of activity, bill of costs, and let's generate one at a time. So when I generate a statement of activity, it could be for a date range, it could be for the complete matter, and let me do it for the complete matter. And as I open my statement of activity, basically outlines everything that you've done for Sam Jones for that particular matter. Okay, so it talks about the statement of activity number, the title of that matter, the file number, the date that was generated. So you have the dockets that I actually put in, what's the total bill of lavers, and you sign. If you wanted to generate for the other one, you choose that particular matter, and you go about doing the same thing. So I do find that some of our clients are not able to hear. I kindly request that you dial into the Join Me phone number provided, and the participant code is 946380328. Moving along, so that was one of the statement of activities. Another report that I'd like to showcase is the bill of costs. This has obviously a slightly different format. So again, for the same client, Sam Jones, has the title, has the file number, has your tax number, but it kind of takes a different perspective. So this kind of really splits out both your legal fees, any fees discounted. So this particular matter had fees discounted, and if it had any other aspects of the fees, it would bring it out as well. The important aspect to note is that it does split out the tax. So it really talks about fee billed and what is the HST. kind of gives your client a quick and easy way to understand the bill of costs at all times. So again, right under document generation, we just looked at two reports under the matter. One was the statement of activity, and then there was the bill of costs. And further to that, you're going to notice the reports. Again, a category of reports are always under that section. And if you look at the timeline reports, and let me look at the timeline for this particular matter, right? Document generation, timeline, matter. What this really outlines, it's really not a printable report, but it's a report that you can view at and look at it. It kind of takes it one step at a time. It really looks at your matter lifeline. It starts with the initial client meeting that we had, or that was docketed for this matter. Talks about the different dockets and the different activities that took place as per a timeline. Obviously, as purposes of the demo, this was done in a single day, so it's harder to appreciate how that timeline has evolved. But imagine a matter that has evolved over a period of time, then that timeline activity report is going to have a beautiful curve of activities across a date range. So if this matter existed over a 6-month period, you're going to notice right under the timeline that the timeline is going to be from a date of over a period of time, and that's what's going to run through as a timeline. And you could do the same thing from an accounting perspective. What was the numbers that were involved in generating that report? Now going to the legal aid format, and this is one of the reports that is most commonly used by a lot of our legal professionals who do legal aid work. There's obviously a document dated for when this report is being generated for the complete matter, but you can uncheck that and choose to tell us a start and date range if you want to generate a legal aid over a date range. Do you want to show the description? Do you want to show the unit summaries? These are all options, making it flexible enough for you to generate that formatted legal aid report. Put in your client ID, your client number, and your certificate number, and if you had a solicit number, you can put that in, and you're just going to hit the download button. And this PDF outlines the legal aid in the exact format that it's expected to be in. So it talks about the date, the service that was provided, and the number of hours that was charged. And if there is any additional information, again, you had opted to show the description of those different services. Some clients opt not to necessarily show what actually went behind that service, but I think it's always a good practice to put that description in and have that as almost as a discipline when you're docketing time. And it shows the total number of billable hours. And if this was provided by, let's say, various legal counsels and legal professionals across the matter, then this would split up that information based on who did it and how much of time was actually spent on that matter by those individuals. Okay? So we looked at from a matter perspective when you're looking at report generation, and these are very pragmatic, very practical reports that you probably are going to need on a daily basis. Statement of activity probably be one of the topmost reports. It's just a quick and easy way for you to show without necessarily sending them an invoice. Almost as a preview, if you will, of your invoices to really show them everything that's happening on that matter. Then you have your bill of costs, and then we looked at the timeline reports, more of a visual representation of that matter, and then a legal aid format of invoicing. And one of the new interesting reports that I've started to demonstrate quite a bit is the matter report. And I'm going to open this up, and you could also have done a bit of quick uLaw insight if you didn't want to necessarily print this. But today's, theme was to be able to provide you with all those reporting capabilities that are print format as well. So when you look at the matter report, it obviously talks about the status. If there's a court number, it brings that in as well. It outlines various different aspects to that matter. So it not only brings out the legal fees, it also talks about who was involved in it, what is the status, if there are any additional notes to that docket, what was the total billable hours. If there were flat rates, it brings out those flat rates as well as dollar amount. 1320 was actually 13 hours and 20 minutes of time spent. And then it talks about disbursements as well as the retainers that you received. This particular case actually even had a reversal, had an invoice reversal, and it outlines that as well. We actually reversed an invoice for this particular client for that $600, and then had another retainer that we took, and there was a client payment that was done as well. And then for certain components, there was a tax involved, and then for certain components, there weren't. And in the actual description of the matter itself, if you wanted to explain a little bit more, if you wanted to add further notes to that matter, you would get that. Now let's look a little bit more about the matter level analytics that this particular report provides. Again, something that you could always look at, understand, view. You can look at it also from a question mark perspective on looking at the matter analytics. What is the status of the invoice? How many invoices have been raised? So this kind of really outlines what was the total amount of paid invoices so far, and if there's any invoice balance that's owing. And this is a really interesting question, right? What is the total amount of funds that I have received in trust so far? So to know that insight, this report is very meaningful to give you the top 15 questions, or in fact now it's increased to 25, I believe. The list just keeps going on. So it's almost 30 questions that for that one matter that we're able to give you insight into in a reporting format that makes a lot of sense to you. So it talks about, all right, how much of pro bono, how much of flat rate did I provide, what was the billable rates that I've worked on. So it really is a deep dive into that particular matter. So it's right under document generation for that matter. If there are multiple matters, you obviously have to choose the appropriate matter that's being used to generate this report. Okay, so going back to the slide that I had, we looked at the timeline reports, the legal aid, okay, perfect. The statement of activities, and the matter level report, the deep dive report that kind of outlines those 30 questions, as well as the legal fees, disbursements, retainers, every touch point that has so much happened in that matter so far in a very granular, time-driven fashion. And we looked at bill of costs. Now let's move on to the next big part of the reporting capabilities of uLaw. And uLaw being a legal accounting software goes without saying that it does come with a lot of inbuilt accounting reports. And I think we've not counted, as I said, we probably over the entire software have about 30 plus reports, and a good majority of them obviously are within the accounting reports. Early on, I mentioned about financial reports that are meaningful to the business, and there are certain financial reports that are required as part of your audit. All of those reports that you need from both those different aspects of the business are available under the accounting menu option on the accounting document generation within uLaw. So I'm not going to read this one at a time. Let's jump into the product, and all of those reports are listed right under document generation. Okay, but just to draw a highlight, a lot of our clients have come back to us emphasizing the importance and the ease of use of generating HST reports. Because as you work through your way in uLaw, we capture not only HST collected, but we also capture the HST paid, and then we kind of balance it out, and we give you in a single snapshot whether you owe the government HST for that quarter, or whether the government owes you back. Okay, so the HST report really stands out because of the actual in-depth functionality that it provides, not just as a report, but the behind-the-scene functionality that operates to give you that single source of truth. And then obviously you have your audit-related documents, your ledgers, your trust ledger, your general ledger, but we go one step further than what the Law Society audits are going to look for and also give you an expense ledger. The expense ledger talks a lot more about your behavior with regards to the expenses that are happening from your business. Okay? And we also talk similarly with the journals and the balances. And then you are able to obviously generate trial balance, a balance sheet. If you didn't know that, you are able to generate a balance sheet. Click of a button within the document generation menu option. The revenue report is a very important report, but we also go one step further and give you the expense, and also one step further and give you a profit and loss report. Because at any time you want to generate what that profit and loss looks like, we do have our analytics that can give you that snapshot. But if you wanted a deeper dive and in a paper format, if that's how you're comfortable viewing information, then we have that as well. A very unique and a very important report I would consider is also the Pro Bono. We outline over a date range the Good Samaritan you've been in providing the pro bonos or a period of date range. It's a simple snapshot of the pro bono that you provide in totality and to exactly who you've provided that. Invoice balance, probably the biggest report that's used in uLaw today. And the reason I say that in the most commonly used report, because that gives you the data about who owes you what money and in what format. And when I say format, it could be client payment where they owe you money, or it could simply be that you forgot after invoicing this individual to move that money from trust to general. So this report almost has your back, right? So if you fail to do something, always ensure that you generate this report so that it gives you the insight and the data as to what you should do to make your money. So it's what we call as a money collector report. And the other twist to it is obviously the aging receivables that gives you the same insight about who owes you money, but goes one step further and it tells you who owes you how much money for how long, right? So if you have a 30-day payment schedule with your client, this report can technically tell you who are the most common defaulters, who are the ones who tend to pay always about that 30-day limit. And if this is a repeat customer, maybe that's an opportunity for you to have that conversation about being polite about saying that you like it if your days of sale were lower. So let's go through all those reports. Again, under accounts, once you've done all your work within the matter, this is where you come down to have a deeper dive reporting capability on your accounts. So we looked at tax. So let me take a quick example really to show you how we capture tax. So why don't I look at this particular matter for Sam Jones, and I will look at his real estate matter. And maybe just jump back to the purchase of condo and just add a disbursement. Okay, so let me just add a new disbursement paid from general. I'll say it's a fax. 20 copies, that's what you're dispersing your client. You're going to charge them the tax anyways. But let's say, again, most common example I provide, that particular day your fax machine didn't work at all, and you had to go to the nearby Walmart or Office Depot or Staples, and you paid them $22, which incurred you a $2.86 tax that you actually paid the government. And let's assume you paid cash, and you paid it out of your owner's pocket. And let's make it Staples Inc. So now you actually not only dispersed the client, but you also expensed about how you went about paying for it to your business. So it's kind of a double whammy. So obviously the disbursement would show up. There you go. The disbursement does show up It also shows up here. So here's your disbursement of $16.95. But now if I go into my accounts, and let's say I go into my document generation and look at that HST report. And let me do it for this month. And I've hit the download button. And all it took was 3 seconds. You would traditionally do this over a quarter because I think you do want to file your taxes based on your schedule on a quarterly basis. It obviously collects all the HST you received. So every time you generate incur a legal fee, you obviously collect HST. If you do, we would ensure we record how much you have collected. But if you were to go down on the particular date of the 26th, you're going to notice that for the matter 992332, which is this particular matter, 992322, you paid that $2.86 apart from collecting all the legal fees. And that is the power of the report that tells you right at the top, it summarizes it, and it tells you you owe the government $4,000 as of today. And you could have generated that same report over a period of time. Those are some of the options that we provide. So if you look at all of the reports, or a good majority of the reports under accounts, gives you that date range capability. Very standard feature in almost all products today. You could do this over a date range, monthly, quarterly, yearly. You can even generate it as an Excel sheet. And then going to our ledgers. This is something that I found out that some of our clients don't necessarily know. How do we generate, again, most commonly asked question, how do we generate a trust ledger for an individual client? Okay. So let's say for Sam Jones, for some reason I want to understand, how do I generate my trust ledger for Sam Jones? When I hit the ledger, trust ledger, obviously you have the date range, monthly. You can do it the trust ledger for month, the quarter, yearly, or you could do it for the entire set of transactions in your database. Or you could choose the uncheck the all clients checkbox and search for the individual client that you're looking for. And when you hit the download button, uLaw knows that you're looking to generate that trust ledger for that individual client, Sam Jones. And if Sam Jones has multiple matters that involve trust, then it would list both those matters. The reason why it did not list the other real estate matter was because that did not involve trust. Okay, so this was one where, because there's a trust ledger, and it outlines exactly the format in which the Law Society auditors are looking for the information. As you probably know, every report within uLaw, especially the accounting reports, are derived out of the bookkeeping guideline report from the Law Society. And in a quick single snapshot, not only you, but can your auditor understand all the transactions and the legitimacy of that by just looking at this report. You got that $1,000 retainer, you did that trust transfer of $1,000 for that particular invoice 2415 for this particular matter, and then you received another retainer later on for $1,400, and you had a legal fee out of which you moved $1,260, and later on for another legal fee 2416, you then moved the remainder of the $140, and here's the balanced trust ledger. Likewise, you could do a general ledger. Likewise, you can do it specifically for Sam Jones. Let me open up that statement. So when you look at the general ledger, now you're going to notice we capture both those matters that Sam Jones, you've been dealing with for Sam Jones. You have your real estate matter, and you also have your purchase of condo, the two different matters that were involved. And if you look at this has a little bit more insight. It talks about what the fees were billed. It also splits it by the fee and HST, any reversals happening, a very balanced ledger. But if you look at the real estate here, there was a $169 fee, and there's a client fee, and that's pretty much it. So the balance owed is $0, and the balance owed here is $0 as well. If I were to look at the expense, let me look at Sam Jones, really look at if there are any expenses that all occurred in his particular matter. Obviously, there were no expenses for him. Moving on, you could do the same thing for journals. And again, often people misunderstand that the ledger and the journals are the same. They're not. They just have a different representation of the information that's provided. And your auditor does ask for journals as well as the ledgers. So this is the trust journal that talks about the financial transactions that happen. The file number, purpose of the funds, the amount. So it's really to the funds that was received into the trust. And the same thing occurs to general expense. And then from a payments perspective, you have your client's trust, general disbursement, and expense payments as well. The next report is the trust balance. Now, by generating the trust balance is always a good way, especially if someone is starting off fresh, or it's always a good habit to be able to generate those trust balances on a regular basis to be able to quickly reconcile visually with your bank. Okay, because this is a statement that you're going to be doing on a monthly basis anyways. You're going to be reconciling with the trust bank, with your bank on a monthly basis if you involve trust. And this lists almost all your clients and the outstanding trust balance on their file. Okay, as of the 14th or 15th of October, obviously this is a really old file, Ryan Peter. But if you look at some of the newer matters that you looked at in the recent past, you have Danny Jonathan, which would have $1,000. You have an Adam Sandler, about $3,000 of trust. And that's the total expended balances on trust ledger. And that's the ledger that you're looking to balance against on a monthly basis. Okay? But any time you want to know what's my trust balance and how is it spread over my clients, this is obviously a test database, so you have so many different numbers, but this is that report that gives you that snapshot. Is under document generation, balances. Likewise, you could do that for your general as well as for your expenses. And if you have attended some of our document generation and how we integrate with Google Drive, you could create, a folder for the reports and then have them stored in Google Drive and have them accessible right within uLaw. And here's your general balances listing, again, by individual clients, by the last activity date. And that's really important because that outlines when was the last touch point for that matter. And the total funds in your general account. Okay. So it's all available under document generation. On the reports, we looked at obviously tax, ledger, journals, and balances. The trust reconciliation is a means of report, but it's probably the most important report that you would generate on a monthly basis. And what this does is it outlines, as we generated, the trust of unexpended balances today. And then the idea is, let us say, the outstanding checks involved, or let's say the deposits. These are all the outstanding deposits, and you've basically added them up. That, as you can see how that adds up. Your goal would be to match this particular number, and only when these two matches do we even allow you to download that monthly reconciliation? Even if this were to be off by 10 cents, you would notice that the download button for you to generate that reconciliation report is still not enabled, because it's really important that the balance per bank statement with the outstanding checks, deposits, any bank errors, if any. So let's say you had a bank error. Okay, so maybe that's what really happened. So that was the bank balance, but then you did have a negative bank error, but it still reconciles, right? Or maybe there was a certain outstanding deposit. So let's say this deposit has not gone through yet. That gets automatically added to your outstanding deposit. And then maybe this is what stands in your back. So it's a permutation combination, but at the end of the day, the total reconciled trust bank balance needs to match the total unexpected balance that's in uLaw as per what you've told us. Once it's balanced, now you download that report, and this is the report that you sign off on a monthly basis. The trust reconciliation report is probably the biggest report that you would be dealing with outside of the invoice balance report. That's more of an internal report. Okay, so that's under document generation, reconciliation, trust. Now we call it reports, but we could call it documents. But if you were to call it as a report, then we do have the entire checklist of all the compliance documents that are required by the Law Society that they would like you. I think it's a total of 3 plus 4 plus 2, 9 reports on a monthly basis. So you're doing your trust general. You can just do them one at a time on a monthly basis and then hit the download button. And you would notice when you come back, you're seeing that up checked off the list, so you know you've already done that. You don't have to worry about generating the client's general for the month of November. So that's our compliance checklist that allows you to generate the top 9 reports or documents that are required for the Law Society. Then you have your balance sheet report. I'm just going to, for purposes of time, generate these reports as we go along, and then we'll talk about that. So here's your balance sheet, and it talks about how much of money is in your trust account, and then how much of money is in your general. And if you have a business credit card, how much money do you have that? So it's really all of your accounts that you've created with the uLaw. It also lists, again, if you're tech into financial deep dive, it also tells you the cash, the petty cash that you have, what are your liabilities, what are your receivables. So your accounts receivable is pretty good, got about 98,000. And then also breaks it down by payroll, taxes, and legal work. So this really outlines how much money you have for each of the different areas of practice. The trial balance, again, very similar information. But as you can notice, you've got the account numbers that are associated with those respective accounts. And it kind of gives you the debit and credits. So it's a slightly different snapshot of it, but it does translate both your debit and credit in one document. As you can see, this is probably the most comprehensive section, which has reports that are really meaningful and practical, because you do need these reports to not only be part of the audit, but also to be able to have a better sense of the business. The fee book and the expense book are 2 audit-related reports. We also give you the revenue report that you can generate at any time, your income with the analytics. How much of revenue have I made for the month of November? I could say, all right, what is my expense looking like for the month of November as well? And the income statement or the expense statement, again, breaks it down by the account type. And that's your income statement for this month as generated today. And if there are any recovery of expenses, because again, those are expenses that are made on your client behalf, which you should expect to get back, we list that as well. So employment being kind of the highest income for that period. And we also kind of give you, or actually it's the accident benefits. Oh, there you go, it's $20,000. That's where you've got made most of your money this month. And your expense also kind of talks about the same report. Where have you spent most of your expenses? Okay, almost 38% are expenses are on client accounts. Almost 27% went on Megan Consultants. Now, these reports have been very well grouped and classified and brought into the analytics section. But again, as a printable paper-based reports, you have them in a different format as well. And generating a profit and loss, quick snapshot. Again, one-click profit and loss statements that kind of compares your income and expense and then tells you what that is. Okay? So basically we've said the total profit is $31,000 for this month. Again, we give you the same snapshot of how your expenses are and how you've received money. And that's the revenue and that's the expense for that month. We spoke about the pro bono, so I want to quickly highlight the importance of that, especially when it comes to how you docket it, because it's important to mark a particular docket as a pro bono to be able to capture it in the report. So let's look at this real estate report, and maybe there's a pro bono. So let's say I click action, and I say autofill pro bono, and I say document drafting. And let's say I spent almost 5 hours on this. So I spent 5 hours doing this document drafting at about $150 an hour. I'm giving it a pro bono to this gentleman. So you've now captured that format of docket as a pro bono. Now when you go back to our pro bono report under document generation, let's say you woke up one day and you were like, okay, how much of pro bono have I actually done this month? Or am I doing this? This is a way of how I do things. Just come in here, hit pro bono, the monthly. It also outlines who are your top clients who are taking advantage of your pro bonos. Okay. So if this client returns, then there's a certain expectation because once is always. So here are your top pro bono clients that have, again, taken advantage. So you look at different graphs. Okay, how much of pro bono, how much have I billed? And it also gives you by date range. If you look at that Sam Jones matter of document drafting today for 5 hours. So in total for this month, you have 18.5 hours of pro bono. Okay? And 37% of that going to Sam Jones at about 7 hours of pro bono that you've done. And that's a very interesting report. And probably for the most, the next, probably the biggest interesting report would be the invoice balance report. I highly encourage any uLaw customer to constantly use this report because it gives you the insight for how you can make your money. We are bringing in this particular report as a user interface shortly with the uLaw, much similar to the quick view. That's going to allow you to quickly check who owes you what money for how long on a regular basis. So here is the invoice balance report. It tells you which client, as of when the last activity date, owes you how much money. And John Gill owes us $169.50 of client payment, but there's no money in trust, and there is no pending trust transfer either. So this is just money that he owes us. But if you look at John Sutherland, he owes us, there's a trust balance of $734.50, out of which $638 is the trust balance, out of which there's $630.40 of pending trust transfer. So this particular column my friends, when you look at it, and if you look at the summary of that, that's all the money that's sitting to be made. That's just sitting in your account that you've not done that moving from trust to general. Okay, so look at this one report, look at this third column, summarize it. And this has happened in real life. We've actually helped a client in real life generate this report and help them recover $5,000 because it was sitting in pending trust transfer. So this $30,000 is actually money to be made. Okay, so this really talks about who owes you, how much money, and in what format. If I were to look the same report as an aging receivable for all my clients, this report gives you the same information, but as I said, with a little bit more information attached to it. So it kind of tells you who owes you how much money, but for how long. So this is really talking about the defaulters and the ones that haven't paid you over a period of time. And as we wait for that report, you obviously have the fee book, expense book. Don't want to bore you with those as well. But then as we come to a closure of this webinar, with leaving us some time for any Q&A. So here is the aging report that talks about the same John Gill. If you look at the John Gill report, it tells you here that he owes you $169.50, but it really doesn't tell you for how long does he owe. But this report tells you that he owes you that $160, and we go ask for 6 months. So as far as we know, he's been owing you that money since April 30th of this year. But if you look at some of the other clients, you're going to notice at Frontenac, for example, he owes you $75 as of September, and it's only now that he owes you about $2,300. Okay? So here are all of those reports that we've spoken about at various contexts. You got your contacts, matter-related, accounts-related, and we even have it at a work-in-progress related. Okay? One of the most important reports is under Quick View, or you can do it under the calendar. It's all the same. We have a work-in-progress report. So you can say, all right, what are the matters that I've been working on, but I've yet to raise an invoice or bill this client for that time? Okay, so for this entire week, I can really look at what is the work in progress of the dockets that I should be billing. And I can do that over a weekly, I can do that over a monthly date range. So if you look at Sam Jones, there's about 5 hours that I should be billing him or invoicing him rather. I've already done the dockets. I have 5 hours, and in addition, I have about $300 of unbilled flat rate for this real estate matter. If you look at it, I go into my matter, there it is. I have an invoice pending, and I have 1, 2, 3 hours, and then I have the $300 flat rate that is sitting. Okay, so that's why the work in progress report, whether you generate it out of a quick view or whether you generate it out of the calendar, is that much more important. I can do this for this week again, download it. So once you generate this report, you know that's the total amount of unbilled hours, and that's what you need to capture. And one of the most common reports that we've been asked for, and we want to highlight really quick how you can generate that. So under Quick View, Document Generation, we have this print option. Now you can generate all the matters that are in existence, or you can generate how many matters have I created for the month of November. So just for the month of November, give me every possible list of matters. Sometimes the Law Society might ask you to give them a list of all the matters that you worked for in that particular year. So then you would be able to just generate that real quick. So for this month of November, these are the total number of matters that we worked on. It talks about the file number, the date it was created, the title, the client, and the status of it, and when it was changed. If you look at our real estate, Sam Jones, something that we created today, It's an active. It also brings out any closed matters too. And if you've archived it, it brings that as well. Okay? And then we do have additional reports under our calendar that are time-based, and that's why we have it under the calendar. You can generate your entire weekly agenda. Some of our clients really want to know, okay, what is the planned work and the work to be done for this week? You can generate those. You can generate your timesheets, and you can also generate client summary and service summary, or a combination of those on a date range basis. So just summarizing with just 5 more minutes left, we want to talk about and highlight all of the reporting capabilities that uLaw presents and how contextually it's available on the different menu items as you work your way through particular contact or a matter or an accounting related information within uLaw. With that, I will open up the chat window for any questions that you may have. Just as a recap, this is not accredited for CPD hours, but hopefully this was an informational session and your time well spent. A recorded version of this entire webinar would be available both on our YouTube channel as well as would be recorded and sent to you if you're registered for this webinar and have participated. You do not have to send us an email that you participated. We'd love to hear from you, but it's not a mandatory need, similar to what we may ask for a CPD session. And if you're new to uLaw, we are a Canadian legal accounting and practice management software, and we offer 30-day trials, and we'd love to walk you through how our product can help your legal firm. So I will wait for questions if there are any on our chat window. Good question. Okay, somebody just asked me about the question mark. It's interesting how I missed that, though it was part of the agenda. The question mark, we did cover the general ledgers, and that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't talk about it. So at the matter level, the question mark that we're talking about is this particular one here. So when you look at it, you have the different ledgers, both the trust, if there are any trust, as well as the general ledger available right for you to click. So if you look at the other matter, purchase of condo, it did involve a trust. And if you were to click on the question mark, it brings out both your trust ledger that you can quickly view in a single snapshot. It's more of an on-screen report, as well as the general ledger. I believe there's a question. Some of the reports do have the option of PDF, but not all of them Excel. Yes, that's a good point. Most of the accounting reports, what we've encountered is that it makes sense to have the Excel sheet. It is a feature that we're working on to provide almost all accounting reports in an Excel sheet, and we will most certainly communicate once it's available. It's certainly in our roadmap to provide all of the accounting-related reports as appropriate that has numbers involved to be available in an Excel sheet. That is a good question. Today, all of those reports are available as a PDF, but yes, it will be made available in an Excel sheet, and we will communicate that timeline. Okay, if there aren't any further questions, thank you very much for attending our uLaw webinar on business reporting. Please feel free to send us your feedback as well as any other additional topics that you would like us to cover. And, there's a few more questions. Thank you very much. To Concealer, what we'll do is we'll take some of those questions offline. I'll make sure I follow up with you and ensure that we address those and ensure that we're on top of that. Thank you very much. We love you too. And thank you once again for attending the uLaw webinar. This would be available as a recorded version. Have yourself a fantastic weekend. Thank you.